Aloha and welcome to A Word with Ward, and I'm Representative Gene Ward. And with me today, I have three people who are going to share their mana'o, their words about small business, high technology, diversification of the economy, and anything that moves us to speak about what's happening in the microeconomic community, particularly high tech. With us today, to my immediate left, Jay Fidell, high tech author. Every Sunday you see his, Let's Talk.
Think Tech.
Oh, Think Tech, which is exactly the same name as your business.
Mm-hmm.
That's clever. And also a lawyer, where you also make a few dollars on the side. In the middle with us, the mediator between these two lovely gentlemen, is Jane Sawyer, Small Business Administration, Entrepreneurship Center, and other things. Jane, you said you...
Oh, lots of different programs. I work in our marketing, women business ownership with our resources like the Small Business Development Center and the Hawaii Women's Business Center and SCORE.
And we're going to come back to see how women play a very key role in what we're going to talk about in terms of technology and small business development. And Mr. Bill Spencer, a high-tech entrepreneur, and his primary hat, even though it says it's the one that he has evolved poverty that he has accepted, as the head of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association.
Aloha, Gene. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for coming and joining us here at the State Capitol. For those of you who don't know, we are actually at the new Olelo Studios at the State Capitol. This is only like 6 weeks old, so you're actually pioneering a new venture. What we've got now is not a pioneering, but an already existing Act 221. Can we start out talking about that? It's one thing that we use to kind of kickstart, give a real dose of tax credits for the high-tech industry, but some have loved and then others have kind of come to hate it. Who would like to start with an update on where we are and where we're going with Act 221? Bill, you just said that you just gave an update on some of the things. Tell us what's going on with 221.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Well, Hawaii has spent years, literally since the early 80s, trying to build a tech industry in Hawaii. A lot of money has been spent on infrastructure, like the Manoa Innovation Center, the High Technology Development Corp., the Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation, and a long list of what some have called alphabet soup agencies. And yet at the same time, Hawaii has been severely starved for venture capital. And that's the kind of money that is required to really help companies commercialize intellectual property, inventions, things that they create that can be sold into a global marketplace. And Act 221 came into being in early 2001, thanks to the wisdom of the legislature and the governor at that time. And it has really, as you said, kick-started the tech industry, where before, in the past, since 1988 until now, the state's direct effort to help fund companies really resulted in less than about $250 million in direct investment. Whereas in the last 7-8 years, Act 221 has generated more than $1.2 billion in investment in our tech companies, who have turned around and spent $1.4 billion directly in the economy through payroll, expenses for goods and services. And so we're very excited that this program is showing signs of being a profound economic stimulus, especially at a time when Hawaii needs economic stimulus.
For those who don't know how much 1.4 billion is in terms of its contribution, our tourism industry is about 12.5. So to say over these past short years we've actually reached almost 10%, I think that is very, very commendable.
Well, the industry itself, in terms of gross revenues, is on par with the accommodations industry, $3 billion a year in gross revenues. So we're talking about economic activity.
Investment is only one.
Investment has been $1.2 billion, whereas before there was virtually nothing available to invest in companies.
So we should think of you as we think of the Waikiki hotel industry, the accommodation industry,
exactly.
as you said.
Construction, for example, is $3.5 billion in gross revenues. And tech is at $3 billion. So we're finally a significant portion of the total economy. As you say, about a fourth of tourism.
And Mr. Fidell, you write about this sometimes every Sunday, or somewhere, somehow, your fingerprints always get back to 221. What's your sense of where we are and where we're going with that?
For some reason, there are a lot of people who question 221. And I don't think they realize how critically important it is. You know, you have to develop strategic industries. This is a strategic industry. This is an industry that's global, that has the prospect of exporting without any cost of exporting, of keeping up, of making sure that Hawaii does not fall into a backwater. Being merely a destination resort is not going to get us home. We have appetites greater than that. So we must develop alternative industry. This is the best one possible. So we've got to encourage it, incentivize it, and we've got to fund or make sure somebody else is funding the investment necessary to build the businesses. Jane Sawyer and I were talking before the show about how small business has changed over the past few years. You know, when we were going through school, small business was a matter of getting an SBA loan, a bank loan, right? And funding a situation where you could buy a buggy whip for $1 and sell it for $1.10, and then you'd make money and everything would be fine. You could pay the rent. That's not the case anymore. In these new modern businesses, these global businesses, you must have investment capital, venture capital, like Bill specializes in, and you must be able to build a business quickly to keep up with a fast-moving market. And that's what tech is about. So exciting, and it will draw our people and keep our young people here. It's not an option, it's a critical requirement for the future, Gene.
So quicker, faster, cheaper, everything is just sped up to the extreme.
Everything to gain, nothing to lose. That's why 221 is so critical, and that's why it's so hard for me to understand the kind of controversy that's come up over it. So I just want to say I don't think there should be a controversy. This is easy.
I want to see how the women are fitting into that. Before I go, I want to go back to the analogy, Bill, that you used in terms of the visitor or the accommodations industry. How much did it take to build all of the hotels we have in Hawaii? What's the dollar amount value of all of our hotels? Because you just said it took $1 billion. We got a whole new industry that basically brings in as much money as the hotel industry in terms of accommodations. Would we have more than $1 billion worth of brick and mortar in terms of hotels?
Oh, absolutely. But I would remind you that the money that it took to build those hotels was also, to a great extent, investment capital. There were loans involved, certainly, but our economy works on the basis of a free market where investors can put money into enterprises and help them grow. And so ultimately it'll boil down to investment. Once a company is going and has cash flow, then they can turn to a bank or an SBA, where they can justify borrowing money because they have the ability to pay it back. But when you want to start something and build something from the ground up, unless you can write yourself a check, you need investors to come on board with you.